Many years ago, I had a dream about opening a club which would only open its doors between the months of October and April. A warm, welcoming place with roaring log fires and cozy nooks where you could sit with your friends and chat about things that interest you. Well, I couldn't even begin to afford to open a club, so the dream died. But its passing is commemorated by this podcast, presenting, for the winter months, a series of cozy chats with friends old and new on topics of interest. Welcome to the October Club. My guest tonight is a professional photographer and craftsman from County Durham, Richard Knapper. We've known each other for many years and we'll be discussing a topic which is as wide-ranging as it is controversial: the unexplained. Hi, Dickie. Thanks for joining me on the October Club
My pleasure.
to talk about the unexplained and possibly some things that are explained. I don't know.
I think everything will be explained eventually. It's just, one of those things.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when we met many years ago. You were like a huge fan of the X-Files. I mean, this is the '90s, so the X-Files was like the thing, and you were a huge fan of that. I mean, was that what kind of got you into kind of load of paranormal things and that?
No, no. My interest in the paranormal goes
Yeah,
way back into the 70s
yeah.
when I was really little. Possibly not, well, probably. I mean, we're all got a particular love of Doctor Who and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I think maybe my interest in aliens came from possibly that. Although there
Hmm.
was the story that my gran told me, where she saw a UFO
All
in
right.
Durham, and she lived in a place called Heaviside Place, which, if you come into Durham's right as you get the main roundabout before you drop down in Durham, and her
Yeah.
house overlooked this. She got up in the middle of the night one night, so this was the 1960s, about 68
Hmm.
or 67, and she looked out the window at the back, and there was a massive light hovering over the house at the
All
back,
right. Yeah.
which then shot vertically up at an incredible speed,
Yeah.
and then was joined from either side by two other lights
Yeah.
that came in, and they all shot off across the horizon in the blink of an eye. I think this kind of captured my kind of interest.
Yeah.
And I remember having a book called Osborne Book of Space.
All right.
And the back, everything was color except for the back, and you had all these little pictures of things you could tick, like the moon or
Yeah.
right. And one of them was UFO tick, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I haven't seen one of those yet. So, and I do remember during the early '80s, I can't remember the name of the magazine. Okay, it was called the Unexplained, Osborne or
All right.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Was that like a part work?
Yeah, yeah. It's just like
Yeah, I remember
every
that.
week you've got it. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got about 30 of them upstairs.
All right.
They were gifted to me last year by somebody. And there
Yeah.
was one.
Sorry. Go on. Go
No,
on.
no, no. There was one particular magazine. I remember I was in the junior school and somebody lent it to me, and
Hmm.
it was all about the Welsh UFO flap of 1977. There was stuff
Yeah.
about the Men in Black,
Yeah.
and there was this thing called the Rippiston Farm Riddle, and
Oh,
that's part of the Welsh Triangle.
yeah.
And at that time, I discovered a book in the library called The Uninvited by Frank Taylor, or was it Clive Harold, one of the two. And
Yeah.
I've got that upstairs, and it was all about this family that were basically tormented by whatever this phenomenon was that was going on at the
Yeah.
time in Wales, and it terrified me. Um,
Yeah.
I I had to sleep with the lights on after I tried to read it. I've read it now. It's an interesting book, but whether it was true or not, who knows?
I remember that magazine because I remember what sticks out in my mind is I remember the adverts for it that were on television where they used to have this incredibly deep voice going, "The unexplained." And I don't think I ever bought the magazine, but I just, that advert sticks in my head.
It's funny because they've all been put in a binder.
Yeah.
I've looked. I haven't got a clue how they put them in the binder. That's
Yeah.
paranormal in itself. How the magazines are in there.
Yeah.
But it's like they obviously were it, not none of this initial copy 199. Then another
Yeah.
150 copies at 14.99 each, it's because I saw an advert for the a Dalek
The
being.
Dalek. Yeah, I saw that.
It's like I was trying to work. That's like that's like 1,500 quid just
Yeah.
to make this Dalek.
Well, no, it's not even full size. It's about half size.
No. Yeah. So, but I mean, I've got them, and that I think is what kind of grew
Yeah.
my interest. And hanging out in the library in the corner where all the kind of the Usborne Book of Ghosts was,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I've sought. I think I must be going through a midlife crisis because I have sought them all out and bought them, and they're on a bookshelf upstairs now.
Yeah. Were you
And
you would have been were you slightly too young to remember Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World first time round, or
no, I can remember it. I don't think I
because
watched.
you'll only been about six or something when it was the first one was on, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember it. And it's not YouTube where I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was reshown on terrestrial TV because I didn't
I
get
think it
Sky
was at
until
some time in the late 80s, I think it was.
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember one thing. I remember them talking about how noises could have been recorded in a pottery as they were
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
pots. So I don't know when I saw that, but. I
Yeah.
mean, the late 80s when I was doing my GCSEs were I remember absolutely hating doing them.
Yeah.
Um, and doing anything I could. So I was reading a lot of ancient astronaut stuff like God Drives a Flying Saucer,
Yeah.
which in my opinion now, looking back on it, it's a load of BS. I
Yes.
don't believe that. I don't believe
Yeah.
that the pyramids are a giant battery and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it'd be interesting to know how they did exactly make these
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah.
that's kind of how it was. My gran and my mum. Mum was always interested, kind of in ghosts, but
Yeah.
she's weird stuff. And gran was. Dad very much is. I'd love to talk to Dad about it because he was in the RAF. So
Yeah.
I'd love to. Oh, Dad, did you see anything weird? Did you hear anything? But
Yeah.
I might ask. I don't know.
The two Arthur C. Clarke shows were the thing I think that got me kind of interested and all that because I remember them really distinctly from being a kid. And
Yeah.
you know, they were brilliant because you had people on kind of talking, obviously really earnestly about things they'd
Mm.
kind of studied and really looked into and found all this evidence for and stuff, and then you get Arthur coming on at the end and going, "Oh, frankly, I don't believe it."
This is whilst wearing a sarong, walking
Yeah,
through the sea, and you're
yeah,
thinking, "Bugger!" It's there's like 3 foot of snow outside in County Durham.
yeah,
What I remember, Arthur C. Clarke, inventor
yeah,
of the communication satellite. I'm like,
yeah,
he must be clever, him, like.
yeah,
I mean, that kind of show did pave the way for things like Strange but True,
yeah,
and
yeah.
but it's only recently with since I'd say 2000 with Most Haunted
Hmm.
that things have really started with the paranormal TV programs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I be honest, I'm not a great fan of Most Haunted. I don't think
No,
it's.
no,
I don't.
no.
I don't
Derek and
buy a
oh,
lot of it, to be
Derek
honest.
getting possessed every week. No, I used to I watched that. I
Yeah,
watched that for like 5, 6 series. I
yeah,
loved it. I thought it was genuine.
yeah,
And then to find out that I mean Derek was lying and
yeah.
putting that on. I've
But
listened to Yvette Fielding's audiobook, which is very
yeah,
interesting. It's just about the paranormal. There's stuff
yeah,
on Blue Peter
yeah,
and Biddy Baxter. Oh God, Biddy Baxter was a formidable woman by the sounds of
yeah,
it. But I don't think the showrunners at Most Haunted knew what Derek was up to.
Yeah.
So
I know they did a one at the Sunderland airfield,
they did,
and
yes.
my ex sister-in-law's brother worked there.
Yeah.
Um, and he was there at the time they were filming that, and I remember him saying that they were going, oh, there's these noises, these tapping noises, and he said it was the trees banging on the corrugated metal roof of the hangars, and you could
Oh,
hear it all the
God.
time, and they go, oh, these
See,
noises.
this kind of thing, I mean, it kind of ruins it for real
Yeah,
investigations.
yeah,
I mean, it kind of sensationalizes the things. I mean, the
yeah,
stuff. I mean, if you look on Sky now on the documentary channels, you've got so much crap. The
yeah,
Monster Hunters and was it Operation Bigfoot, and I mean, there's some interesting ones. There's a guy Expedition X,
yeah,
and that's Josh Gates, who's really cool. I mean,
yeah,
he's an archaeology background, and he's got
yeah,
two guys, two people who work for him, and they go off and I mean, they're not scientific experiments, but they do try and figure out what's going on. You got one skeptic and one
yeah.
believer, and you just want to bang your head off a wall half the time because neither of them are going to give an inch. You know, it's definitely real. No, it's not. It's fake. So it doesn't exist.
As a photographer, because
Hmm?
your day job, one of your day jobs is you're a photographer. Um,
Yes.
d what do you think of like the obviously the various photographs of ghosts? I mean, do you look at them and kind of go, "Oh, that could be real," or do you look at them and go, "Oh, that's a double exposure, that's a burn on the negative"?
Um, I think it's harder to fake video.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
digital's
so,
yeah, it's harder
yeah,
to yeah,
and I think it's harder to fake old video, as in when we used back in the day, video when it would be a
yeah,
cassette for the youngsters. Because you, I mean, there were ways and means to fake it, but
yeah,
with digital cameras, it is, I wouldn't say easy because
yeah,
I wouldn't do it myself, but there is more of a scope to be able to try and manipulate the image.
yeah,
Um, Although the software that you've got now to detect whether something's been altered or manipulated
yeah,
is amazing.
yeah,
I think there are some really good examples of ghost pictures, but
yeah,
with film, like this, what I'm just trying to think. I don't know whether it's real, it's been debunked or not. But there's one I
yeah.
remember. It was a ghost with a shroud and a horrible
Oh
face
yeah,
standing on an altar.
in the church.
That's probably yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's probably been debunked now. But I always thought that that was really quite striking.
Yeah, I mean that one is fantastic. I think that's my favorite one. But
Mm.
even then, there's a kind of part of me thinks that could be like a chemical burn on the negative,
It could,
just
yeah.
smudging down. You know,
Yeah. There's something called pareidolia, and you
yeah,
get it both with your eyes and with your ears,
yeah,
and it's where the human brain has to make a shape out of
yeah,
something. So
yeah,
when you look up at the sky and there's a cloud and it looks like an elephant, that's so if you see something, and you don't know what it is, you can actually think that make it into a ghost or something like that, or a
yeah,
spirit.
yeah,
And the same when they do these things called electronic voice phenomena or EVPs, and you
yeah,
record something, your hearing tends to do the same thing. So you can
yeah,
actually think of it, make something into a word that wasn't really a word. I mean,
yeah,
there's lots of tech now that they use in ghost hunting, boxes and kind of things like that, where they kind of they it's like a radio
yeah,
and it jumps through all the signal wavelengths or what have
yeah,
you, and it pulls words out, and those words are meant to be
yeah,
communications allegedly from the ghosts
yeah,
of the spirit world. I mean, I saw an episode of this Expedition X
yeah,
where they did something called the Estes method, where they the blindfold the person, put
yeah,
noise cancelling headphones on, so all they can hear is what's coming from this box.
yeah,
Somebody else asks the questions. So
yeah,
that person relate. They don't hear what the questions are, but they relate what they hear.
Yeah.
Josh Gates is sitting there going, and he's asking questions, and it says, "Is there anything you would like to say?" Says, and she says, "Josh, run!" And he just jumped out of his chair. I'm like, wow. I mean, that's good because neither of them, because actually, to make it better, there was two of them
Yeah.
blindfold and with headphones, and one of them said Josh, and the other one said run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's quite interesting. I mean, I'd have to think about how that could
Yeah.
be debunked, but
Yeah.
because I'm always, I mean, I would like to believe, but I'm kind of a healthy skeptic.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
it comes to ghosts, scared.
I tend more towards the stone tape side than the
Yeah,
spirits of the dead side. I genuinely do think images can be in some way sort of held by whether
yeah.
certain types of stone or whatever. I genuinely I think that doesn't seem implausible to me. That seems like a
Oh,
perfectly believable thing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Danny Robbins, who does a brilliant podcast called Uncanny. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of Danny. He did.
No, no.
No, he's from Newcastle.
All right.
But he does this podcast called Uncanny because it's all about the uncanny. But
Yeah.
he's got a skeptic in Dr. Kieran O'Keefe. He's a parapsychologist,
Yeah.
and then he's got a believer who's Evelyn Hollow, who's another
Yeah.
parapsychologist, and they kind of bounce off each other. But
Yeah.
in his book that I've just listened to, he was talking about stone tape theory.
Yeah.
He basically related the whole story of Stone Tape about Tascalans and
Yeah.
how they were looking for a new recording medium and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I think that is a very plausible way or a plausible thing. I mean, because the more traumatic an event
Yeah.
that happens somewhere, then that energy that comes off that event has got to be stored somewhere because
Yeah.
it can't be destroyed. It has to. Physics says
Yeah.
it's either stored or changed.
Yeah. But I mean, even on a purely scientific level, I mean,
Mm.
photography is just all chemistry, isn't it? It's just all chemical
Yeah,
elements that
it
store
is.
light, so you could have
It
something like
is.
that occurring naturally. There's no reason
Yeah.
why it couldn't, yeah.
Well, I've just started doing film photography again, would you
Yeah.
believe?
Yeah.
I mean, it's becoming very fashionable. And I can't believe the film canister, what was it, used to cost about £3. It's now about a tenner
Oh
for a
God.
roll of film. So,
Yeah.
you want a kidney? But might be an interesting thing to try and set up, like maybe do double exposure or something like that.
Yeah. Try some photography. Do you remember Ted Serios?
Oh, was it? Yeah, wasn't it Edgar Cayce who used to try and do those?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what. Probably that weird book of the next Arthur C. Clarke. That'll have been one of his books.
Yeah. That's one of those. I mean, Ted Serios was one of those things where you kind of look at it and you think, well, that's fake because he's got this little roll of paper that he used to concentrate on. You think he's got something in there, but
What's
then
in
they
the
show you his pictures and what he's thinking of, and they've got slightly different. You think, well, how did he do that? How did he make it slightly different?
well, film
It's
negatives work. I mean,
yeah,
X-rays severely affect negatives.
yeah,
So, and CT scans is something I've been looking into because going on holiday, I'm taking a film camera with me, and when
yeah,
you put it through the scanner before it can damage the film.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's one of those things.
yeah.
But it Stone Tape Theory is very, very interesting.
Yeah. That's why I think that the most interesting stuff is the stuff that's multiple media, isn't it?
Yeah,
Multiple evidence, like the
yeah,
Enfield haunting and things like that, you know.
yeah, which is
Um,
very compelling. And but you've got, I mean, I know Kieran O'Keefe would say mass hysteria, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know because I mean, Danny Robbins talks. Was it the Enfield? Is that the one where there's a picture of the girl flying through the air?
yeah,
Yeah, Danny covers it in his book. He speaks to the photographer who worked for the
yeah,
Daily Mirror, and he basically he's what were you doing? He says, well, I set the cameras up, had a remote
yeah,
release downstairs. We'll be talking. and all
Yeah.
of a sudden all hell break loose upstairs. So I'm hitting the
Yeah.
remote release, and that's when I got the picture of the girl flying through the air.
Yeah.
He said, and he also was there when it was kicking off around him, and
Yeah.
he said that he got hit by a Lego brick that just
Yeah.
appeared out of nowhere. And he
Yeah.
says, "Sting." I'm
Yeah.
thinking you want standing on one, mate.
Yeah. It's an
But
interesting one because, like, I remember seeing a program about it years ago. I think it was on one Halloween. Must have been in the 90s, must have been in the early 90s. And it scared the shit out of me. All the kind of the recordings,
yeah,
the vocal recordings. And there's a lot of it that you look at now, and I think actually the girl that the main one of the daughters involved has said I did stage bits of it, but there's other bits that you think, how could she have known that? How did she know that that guy had died?
yeah,
In exactly that who he was, and
mhm,
where he died in the house and stuff like that. It was odd.
yeah. It is very odd.
Yeah,
But there's also, I mean, they also talk about things like infrasound,
yeah,
um, which can cause the brain to do weird things, to imagine things that aren't there. I mean, my one of my spooky stories is the High Level Bridge in Newcastle.
yeah,
I was there taking pictures. It was around about 6:30, 7 o'clock, so it was pitch black. I
yeah,
was the only one on the bridge, apart from one girl who was right over by the castle keep, just coming on the bridge.
yeah,
And I'm standing there taking pictures. I'm looking through the viewfinder, and all of a sudden, I felt like there was somebody my height standing right next to me. And
yeah,
I looked out front of my eye, and I saw somebody who was white British. Well, I'm saying white Brit, white,
yeah,
uh, darker hair, light coloured coat. Not sure about the trousers because I didn't see that. Turn around, nobody there.
yeah,
Freaked me out. And I asked the girl when she got it, was there anybody near me? And she says, no, there was nobody here. So I don't know whether I actually saw a ghost or
yeah,
whether it's infrasound that was causing it from the train on the going
yeah.
above me. But I packed up and left very quickly, and I've not been back.
Yeah, my brother swears blind. He goes fishing, and he was out on the pier at South Shields, which goes out a long way.
Yeah,
And he'd been fishing, and he'd been aware of somebody. A guy walked past him with a fishing
yeah,
rod. He didn't have much gear. Normally they would have the box with all the
yeah,
bait and everything in it. He
yeah.
just had a rod,
Sit on.
and this guy walked past him and up there, and my brother just kept on fishing. Then after a bit, he looked up to where the guy had gone past him, and there was nobody further up the pier. And there's no way off that, that's just
No, there
sea
isn't. It's
beyond
just
there.
it's the North Sea, and then you got Denmark and Norway. Yeah,
And the
that
guy hadn't gone past him, and he mentioned it to one of the other fishermen there, and they went, "Oh, he gets seen
you've seen
quite a lot."
Bert or something.
Yeah,
It's yeah, it's again, but that could be down to, again, stone tape theory
yeah,
because it could have been recorded in whatever it was recorded in
yeah,
the stones around there because that pier is older than the North Pier
yeah,
because the North
yeah,
Pier breached and they had to rebuild it because it was curved. The North Pier was curved like the
yeah.
South Pier and they had to rebuild it.
The long pier that goes out a long way.
It does, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
I was up on Hadrian's Wall and I don't know whether it was my eyes playing tricks on me,
yeah,
but I was up there to photograph Sycamore Gap
yeah,
before it was chopped down, sadly. And I am absolutely convinced I saw the top of a Centurion's helmet,
yeah,
the kind of bristly bit,
yeah,
and I thought, no, I'm seeing things here.
yeah,
So I've got a friend who's very much into Roman reenactment. He was part of the Yeoman Street Guard, and he makes all this Roman reenactment stuff. And I says, Graham, I says, have you ever seen a centurion up on Hadrian's Wall?
yeah.
Oh, you've seen him, have you? I'm like, oh, what? He's like, oh yeah, not many people see him, but we know he's there. I'm like,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, this house we're in now has got quite an old central heating system, and I can really believe how some people think that, they've got poltergeists in their house because the bloody noises it makes sometimes. It's banging and
Yeah,
rattling, like it rattles right across the floor. Obviously, it's air bubbles or
yeah,
whatever in the pipes. It rattles
yeah.
right across the floor like that. It reminds me of, The Haunting, where you have the kind of scraping noises going across the side of the frame.
I mean, poltergeist. I don't know a lot about poltergeists and
Yeah.
possessions, because quite frankly, they scare the bejesus out of me.
Yes.
But yeah, they're kind of the the noises.
Yeah.
It's like it starts quite small and then builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it's like, oh no, thank you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like that. But it's one of the things that somebody said to me, it's bloody typical that they're kind of blame teenage girls for this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, kind of. Yeah,
It's
not teenage
yeah.
girls.
When we first moved in here, I was kind of, what the hell's that? But I sort of very quickly realized it's I probably just need to bleed the radiators.
You probably, yeah. I mean, used to when I lived with my parents, you used to
Yeah.
lie there in bed at night and you hear it tick 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 tick, and it was the heating, it was the radiators, it was the pipes, it was. But I do remember lying in bed and hearing footsteps, little footsteps, like a
Yeah.
toddler running around. And this is when my youngest brother, who's 8 years younger than me, Alistair, when he was little,
Yeah.
downstairs,
Yeah.
and we were all asleep upstairs. And I could hear this running around downstairs.
Yeah.
And I just went, no, and went to sleep. And I remember, this came back to me recently, maybe it's about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'm like, what the hell was that? Because I know
Yeah.
Alistair was asleep with my mum in my mum and dad's bedroom.
Yeah.
So I've got no idea. And I know that the couple before my mum and dad had the house didn't have kids.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know what that was.
Carpet fitter Roy Fulton thought he knew what to expect on the byways of Bedfordshire. But there's one journey he'll never do again in the dark. He was driving home on the deserted road from Stanbridge to Tottenham when the headlights of his van picked out a lonely hitchhiker.
There was a figure thumbing a lift on a street light down here on the left-hand side. I'll stop just down here and let you see where it is. So we're there now. I thought to myself he could either be going to Tottenham or Dunstable. So I thought to myself I'd give the lad a lift. He actually walked back into the headlights of the van. He opened the van door, he got in, sat down. I asked him where he wanted to go, and all he said was, well, he never said a word, he just pointed up the road. I started the van up, drove off, never made no conversation. It was just about now I leant forward, picked up me packet of cigarettes. In fact, it was just about here. Turned round to offer the lad one, and that man or boy was not sitting there. And, well, I just frightened the life out of me. I turned round and had a look in the back, and I realised that he wasn't in there, because by this time I had switched the interior light on. And by this time I was just sort of panicking, and I just put it in first gear and I went like a bat out of hell.
And the sanctuary he headed for was his local pub, the Glider. Landlord Bill Stone remembers Fulton coming in, shaking and white as a sheet.
He said to me, give us a large Scotch quick. I said, hey, you seen a ghost or what? He said, yeah, I have. I've seen a ghost. I said, don't be silly. He said, I've seen a ghost.
He insisted that we had to go down the police station because he thought if anybody had got hurt or whatever it was, he'd rather find out about it then, than another day. And, when we got home, it was still on his mind. And, in fact, we slept with all the lights on because he was so convinced that it would, I don't know why, that it would come home, follow him home.
There's obviously someone got in that motor, and I do not for note to this day what it was.
Yeah, I was going to tell you about my weird experience in Great Lumley, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, you were.
yeah, I don't know what you'd class it as. It wasn't ghostly. I'm not sure what you would call it, but I mean you've been to my cousin Neil's house, but
Yes.
for the listener, he kind of lives in a fairly sort of rural area, and kind of outside the close of houses. To get to the bus stop, you have to walk around an area that's behind the houses, and on the other side is just fields stretching for
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
Um, and I was kind of walking I'd been to visit him, and I was walking from his house to get to the bus stop with just fences behind me on one side and miles of fields on the other side. And it was a winter night, so it was really dark. It was pitch black. I don't know if I was listening to music or anything, but all of a sudden, this shadow just passed over the top of my head. Sort of, I would say I couldn't really say how big it was, but it was big. Close enough that I've flinched like that. And then when I looked up, there was nothing. There was nothing in the direct. I thought it was maybe a top. It seemed to be like rippling, like as if it was like. I thought it was a tarpaulin or something that had blown from one of the gardens, but there was nothing
Yeah.
about. There's nothing there, nothing in the gardens, and nothing towards the fields. And I told someone, they said, was it an owl? And I said, well, even at full pelt, I don't think it would have got far enough for me not to have been seen it disappearing across the fields in a split
No.
second. And it was just I've never have found any explanation for that. It was very, very strange.
I mean, if it was an owl,
Yeah,
being a wild photographer,
yeah,
uh, a barn owl makes no noise at all.
yeah,
Absolutely dead side. Weird.
yeah,
Because you can hear all these the little birds like blue tits and robins and what have you.
yeah,
You can hear that. Barn owl, nothing.
yeah,
Uh, Tawny owl, not so much. But sounds to. I mean, there was obviously something that made you flinch.
yeah.
So
I mean, it passed close, and like I say, it was the more the shadow than anything that kind of. But I was
but
aware of it passing above my head, but I have no idea what it was. Just something.
they do talk of things called shadow people. I
Yeah,
don't know what exactly they are. I mean, I've seen videos on paranormal caught on camera.
yeah,
When you look at it and you go, "Oh, Jesus, that doesn't look very
yeah,
paranormal." But there is stuff where you're like, "Whoa, that's kind of," and they are like shadows that
yeah,
are in the shape of people, and
yeah.
you, how on earth is that happening? I mean, it could well be it could have been that. It could
It
have,
seemed, like I say, it seemed to have like a rippling quality, which is what made me think, is it a tarpaulin or a sheet that's flown off somebody's line or something? But it was the fact that a split second later, there was
it,
nothing there. There was no evidence
nothing
that
there.
anything had ever been there. It
Well,
was
they do talk
weird.
about some. There's lots of, I wouldn't say evidence, but lots of talk at the minute about multiverse theory.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, because Marvel doesn't have, they didn't invent it. Um,
yeah,
Basically, there's a place in the States called Skinwalker Ranch,
yeah,
and I mean, I first read about this, God, 10 years ago in a book called The Hunt for the Skinwalker, by a doctor called Colm Kelleher.
yeah,
And it was just a bunch of scientists that were trying to figure out what all this weird shit was.
yeah,
Uh, they figured out it was like a portal potentially to another dimension.
yeah, right.
Um, and there's this kind of cases all over the States now. You've got places called the Bradshaw Ranch, you know, the Bennington Triangle,
Yeah,
the Bermuda Triangle.
yeah,
But we've got one something here in the UK called the Bempton Triangle, which is near Bridlington. It's near Bempton Cliffs,
all
which is an
right, yeah,
RSP place in North Yorkshire. And lots of weird things happen there, just bizarre happenings.
yeah, right.
Lots of cryptids, lots of UFO sightings, ghosts. Um, so that it kind of It could have been whatever you experienced. Could have been that. It
Yeah.
could have been something. If the what people describe as the veil between the dimensions was thin, it could have passed
Yeah.
through. I,
Are you
I don't know.
suggesting Neil's house is a portal to another dimension?
I've been there. I've been to Lovely before. I grew up not too far away from Lovely. Uh, I don't know.
I'm guessing because it was flying and I didn't know what it was, it technically could be classified as UFO because it was unidentified and it was flying and it was an
Yeah,
object.
or the new buzzword, unidentified aerial phenomena. I mean,
Yeah.
can we go flying saucers? That was so much cooler.
Uh,
Um, it's
AAF doesn't sound as good as UFO, does it?
no, it doesn't.
UAF, sorry.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It certainly doesn't. And I was looking into it last night. The whole term flying saucer came about because the reporter
Yeah.
mistook something that the guy said. He said it skipped like a saucer would if you skipped it across water. So
Yeah.
flying saucer was pointed. It's a flying saucer.
Yeah.
No, it was a crescent, a half moon shape. What I saw.
Yeah.
It's just the press for you. But
Yeah. So, I mean,
it's
what
just
do you think, as a photographer again, what do you think of the photographs of UFOs? I think less of them, I would say, are fantastically
yeah,
convincing.
yeah. I mean, everybody has a phone now, has a camera now. Well, I'd say about
Yeah.
99. But you can't say everybody because I know I've got a friend called Graham who's got a steam-powered phone that doesn't have a camera. He says it just needs to make a call. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Uh,
but everybody has access to cameras, and I mean, I've been tricked. I do when I drive back from Alnwick Market during the winter.
Yeah.
It's dark when I'm coming back, and I got filled the other year by Venus. It was kind of spinning, and I thought it was phasing in and out, and I thought, oh God, that's weird.
Yeah.
But it was Venus. It was just
Yeah.
bright
I can't,
star.
I can't say I've ever seen one, but I possibly have seen one and not even thought anything of it because
Yeah,
where I used to live, we were in the flight path of Newcastle Airport.
yeah,
So you were constantly seeing blinking lights going overhead quite high up. And it was
yeah.
just the planes coming into land at the airport. But you
Yeah.
used to see
I
them
mean,
all the
the,
time.
the, the good thing is, if you see a blinking light on something, it tends to be navigation lights of an aeroplane.
Yeah,
And now you've got the app that you can put on your phone, and you go, oh
yeah,
yeah, that's KLM from wherever going to Edinburgh,
yeah.
and what have you. But uh,
Yeah, my dad
it's
used to
still
years
there.
ago have the old the radio for listening to
Oh
the
wow,
aircraft, which I don't think you can do
yeah.
now. I don't know. I'm not sure
I
that
don't
they have
know.
signals you can pick up on the radio, but or maybe
I
they
don't
do.
know.
I'm not sure.
I just don't like flying. That's not my favorite
Yeah.
thing to do. I mean, if God intended you to fly, it would have given you wings.
Yes.
Uh, but it's necessary evil for getting cool places.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, a lot of the UFO stuff you see is fake.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I do watch a lot of this. The proof is out there, and paranormal caught on camera and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And there was another one that I've been watching recently where they actually do send everything off
Yeah.
to be, and they put it through the ringer.
Yeah.
They check rocket launchers, they check satellites, they check this, they check that, they check flight plans, they check, and then they put the photo or the video through this software and they can say whether they've actually seen something genuine or whether they can
Yeah.
or not. But it's really interesting seeing the other person because they're either really really invested in whether it's real or not, and then they get really crestfallen when they find out, or they totally deny it. So, well, you're wrong. I
Yeah.
definitely saw something. And we're not saying you didn't see something. You saw an aeroplane, or you saw
Yeah.
rocket launch, or part of Elon Musk's rocket coming back in
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
outer space.
Yeah, the ones that fascinate me are the that classical one of the guy in Scotland who sort of saw the UFO that had landed, those kind of weird round things with the spines
Like
on.
the World War II mines.
Yeah, that's always
Yeah.
fascinated me because you see that and you see that guy, and you
Robert
think
Taylor.
he's not somebody who would just make that stuff up, is he? He's
No,
not. He's not.
no.
You see a lot of people and you think, yeah, I could believe you'd make that up, but that guy, you just think, why would a man
No,
like
he
that?
was. I mean, the Scottish
Yeah,
aren't off flights of fancy in the first place.
yeah,
They're not. They're hard as nails. The Scots.
yeah,
But he. I mean, that one. I think that was 1979, 78,
yeah,
79.
yeah,
Um, he was. That's the only criminal case opened by the police in the
yeah,
United Kingdom with regards to a UFO incident.
yeah. Right.
And I believe he'd been up there. He was with his dog. He was walking through the woods. Then he came into a clearing, and there was a strange object there.
Yeah,
And something there was a door opened, and
yeah,
these two World War II mines tumbled
yeah,
out, went towards him. There was a gas. He passed out. The next
yeah,
thing he knows, he's waking up. He's got rips in his trousers and stuff
yeah,
like that. What the kind of skeptics say that it had meningitis, and they're trying to argue that was it an epileptic hallucinogenic episode brought on by. I mean, it sounds crazy.
There were tracks
Uh,
though, weren't there, in the grass,
yeah,
if I remember
there were.
rightly. So
I
there
mean,
was
the
kind of
police said
some
something
physical
had
evidence.
happened.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the thing. If there's physical evidence, it's very difficult to
yeah,
debunk. It's like at the Rendlesham Forest incident, which again happened in 1979, Christmas
yeah,
1979. There were physical traces left.
yeah,
There's lots of people trying to debunk and saying what they saw was the lighthouse at Orford Ness in the distance. Uh, but
yeah,
the base commander, Charles Holt, still to this day says, I know what that lighthouse looked like. It definitely was not that. And there were three marks in the ground where something had landed or
yeah,
had been there. And the trees around there were burnt and branches had been broken off at a high level as if something had come in.
yeah,
So who knows? I mean, I've listened to his tape recording, and it is creepy. It's spooky to listen to because they're obviously on high alert for something.
yeah,
And other things around that. I mean, at the time, somebody came, the supreme commander from Europe came in and confiscated some of the evidence.
yeah,
Allegedly. Allegedly. I mean,
yeah. I hadn't realised that that Scottish one was as late as 1979 because that I
yeah.
remember seeing that on Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. So it
Yeah.
must have been less than a year old
Yeah.
when they did that. I hadn't
It's
realised it
still,
was
it's
that
still.
recent.
I watched it something about it recently.
Yeah,
Ah, oh dear. It was there's this yeah, Greg Charles, the
yeah,
most believable on television,
yeah,
and they're a credit space journalist, and so were basically they looked into UFO cases, and this
yeah,
was one of them.
yeah,
But they were quite. I mean, she's very skeptical about the whole thing,
yeah.
being a space scientist. Although she did something called Contact, which was another UFO. Oh, sorry, alien-based, extraterrestrial-based
Yeah,
thing. Um, and it was interesting because some of the stuff I found very hard, very, very hard to invest and believe in.
yeah,
A whole alien battle over a town in Wales.
right.
I think it was called the Pentract incident or something like that.
Yeah,
But this was one of them. The kind of, and I thought, oh, God, I remember this. And there's a guy who's still investigating it.
yeah,
He's got the trousers. He's got this bloke's trousers. So it's interesting. I think there was another one in Wales called the Berwyn Mountain incident, where there was allegedly a UFO crash in Wales. Which, I
yeah,
mean, I've got a book on it. It could have been. It could have also been an earthquake because we do
yeah,
have them over here.
yeah. I mean, speaking of UFO crashes, I mean, what's your general feeling on Roswell? I mean, do you think that's genuine? Or...
Um, I do. I it's a weird one because
Yeah,
I'd never heard of Roswell
yeah,
until the 90s. And the funny thing about Roswell was that it happened and then it kind of fizzled out until the
yeah,
1970s.
yeah,
So from 47 to the 1970s, nobody really talked
yeah,
about stuff. And then it was oh, not Brazel, but whoever was the guy who was sent out by the Roswell Army Air Force
hmm
to look at the bits. Memories gone.
yeah,
But he started talking of Charles, not Charles Holt, but he started talking about it,
yeah,
and it came back into the public eye. And I think the army tried to debunk it several times, or the Air Force tried to debunk it several
yeah,
times. There were too many people came forward in my mind.
yeah,
There's like morticians, nurses, other people, uh, and it was odd that this guy. Jesse Marcel Jr., that was him. Jesse
yeah,
Marcel. He kind of brought all this stuff back to the airbase, and they showed him it, and the airbase commander went to the papers, and they said we've got a disc, and then all of a sudden they kind of put him on this plane to go to Fort Worth, and then when he was at Fort Worth, the wreckage was changed. He
yeah,
claims it was changed from that of what he found to a weather balloon.
yeah,
And he had to pose. The picture of him posing with it was of a weather balloon. So I I do think something happened there. I
yeah.
think, but you never
Again, I
know.
mean, like the Scotland thing, it's a lot of people that really had nothing to. They didn't have anything to gain from lying, did they? You know, they weren't making any
Oh,
money out of it or anything, or they weren't interested in the fame of it.
no,
So that I think that is when you get things like that, that's what makes it a bit more convincing, is when people aren't
yeah.
really, you know,
And there's still people go out into the desert now with metal detectors and look for
yeah,
stuff. And I think somebody found something recently. They were doing a dig with metal detectors, and they found
yeah,
something, and they took it to be analyzed,
yeah.
and it was 100% aluminium,
All right.
which never ever occurs naturally.
Yeah,
It shouldn't have been there.
yeah,
It didn't know what it was, why it was there. So, was it a piece of alien wreckage? Maybe.
yeah, yeah. I think what did the whole Roswell thing more harm than anything was the inverted commas alien autopsy video.
Yeah, yeah. The A lie, and yeah, it was.
I mean, I mean, I've discussed this already in this series in the show about hoaxes. I mean, I remember seeing that on Channel 4 and
It
just
was.
thinking that was so unconvincing.
Yeah. I mean, I know we were going to parody it with a Cyberman, but yeah, it was very disappointing. But was it Philip Mantel? No, something like that. There was, but
Yeah,
it was. I mean, it was good. But it wasn't convincing.
yeah.
It's
It was
like
filmed in
when
Camden,
expert.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. They're experts. And I go, well, I think your father didn't have coiled telephone wires back in
Yeah.
1997. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, it's
A lot of the people that were on that show that they did, which, if I remember rightly, was presented by Jonathan Frakes. So
yeah.
so it must be true.
God.
Um, a lot of the people that were on that apparently have since come forward and said, "Yeah, my interview was really edited out of context, and they cut out all the bits where I was going, this is bollocks."
I mean, this could be paranormal in itself. Why do they get somebody from some episode of Star Trek to present the program on The Unexplained? Like William Shatner.
Yeah, that goes back a long way, doesn't it? Because Shatner's done them. I think Leonard Nimoy did
Yeah, he
something like
did.
that. Yeah.
Breaks. Patrick Stewart's going, I'm not going anywhere near it, dear boy. No. Yeah, the alien autopsy was not brilliant. But I
Yeah,
think that wasn't that just kind of. I'm not sure when that came out. I know in 1997 when I was in the States, the
yeah,
kind of the US Air Force brought out their final kind
yeah,
of report into the Roswell incident and basically go, well, you've just
yeah.
that's stuff you. uh,
Yeah,
but
I think the alien autopsy was kind of riding on the back of the kind of X-Files mania a
X-Files.
bit, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, I loved the X-Files. I mean, going back to what you were saying, that was
Yeah,
just like brilliant. I mean, that came from something called Kolchak the Night Stalker from the
yeah, yeah.
1970s. And it was, and I've got the box set. I still to this day have not seen the conclusion of the X-Files. Even up to 2018, I've not watched that series yet. I'm trying to watch it in order. So I've gone back to the beginning, and my God, how technology's improved.
I don't think it was ever kind of satisfactorily this set up too many loose ends really to tie it all up.
Oh, maybe it's going to come
They
back.
just
Maybe Mulder's going to be like in his 80s, and
yeah, they did do a
still.
comeback, didn't they? A few years ago.
Yeah, they did
Saying a few
two.
years ago, it was probably about a decade ago, but
Yeah, no, it was 2018.
2018 was
Uh,
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
when they were kind of when they brought 2017, 2018. I think they came back for the last two series. And I've watched one of them, and it was good. It literally went back to how it was in the beginning.
yeah. They were quite sort of. They had a bit of a kind of internal story, but they were a bit sort of
Yeah,
standalone ones as well, which were always the best ones,
yeah,
really. The standalone ones.
yeah. Monster of the Week and kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
I mean, for somebody who loved that kind of weird stuff, I loved them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, speaking of Monster of the Week, what about what are your thoughts on, Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and the Mothman and so on?
Okay, right, here we go. Cryptozoology. This is something I've recently become a bit more interested in. I listen to a
Yeah,
lot of podcasts.
yeah,
And cryptozoology, I mean, well, Nessie, I hate to break the hearts of many, many, many people. It doesn't exist. And
yeah,
that's my wife included. I think when we went up to Loch Ness a few years ago on holiday, and she's, I
yeah,
want to see Nessie. I want to see that. Nessie doesn't exist. What do you mean? Nessie just. I'm like, right, okay. This is the thing. Nessie is meant to be a massive, massive animal. There's not
yeah,
enough food in this lake or loch to sustain a creature of that size. And
yeah.
if it's been around for that long, what is it like? Like a Time Lord monster living in the water regenerates every few
Yeah, there
hundred years.
couldn't be just one, could there? That'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
Although I've heard recently there were some pictures taken, but they haven't managed to debunk yet, and
Yeah,
it is of quite a big disturbance in the water.
yeah,
Um, who knows? There could be something. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I doubt it though.
yeah,
That and a lot of the original pictures taken by I don't know whether it was dentist or a doctor have been
yeah,
debunked now. It was a toy,
yeah.
something like that.
Because Loch Ness is, surrounded by forest on a lot of sides, you do just get a lot of logs falling
Yeah,
into that water, and a lot of, I
yeah,
think, what people have photographed is logs.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's that. I mean, you don't actually honestly get the tricks. I mean, it's not like any of the Great Lakes in the States or anything like that.
yeah,
But it's the biggest area of fresh water in the United Kingdom. It's
yeah,
massive.
yeah,
Um, and I've been there three times now on holiday, and it's a beautiful place.
yeah.
Um, never seen anything.
It's kind of after a certain point, I think, in like the kind of the 50s or the 60s, it's
Yeah,
in their best interests to keep people thinking that there might be something in there because it really ramps up the tourism, doesn't
I was going to say tourism.
it?
No, we're not Senegal, or corporate. No, I mean I'd like to be proved wrong.
Yeah,
And I've got to say that Loch Ness is actually connected to the North Sea.
yeah,
It's not completely landlocked, but
yeah.
I can't see it. I can't see it. Um, But I mean, cryptozoology, Bigfoot or
Yeah,
Yeti, or I think there's more of a chance of that. When even Sir David Attenborough talked about
yeah,
the being a chance of something like that. Was it Gigantopithecus?
yeah,
And until recently, apes, gorillas hadn't
yeah,
been seen wild. So
yeah,
there is a chance. It's just when you watch these things like the Alaska Killer Bigfoot and
yeah,
um, Operation Bigfoot, and they kind of some of them kind of prey on the supernatural elements to these creatures, i.e., they're not from this dimension. They have glowing eyes,
yeah,
slip in and out, and stuff. And I mean, oh my God, I never ever got to the end of the TV series
yeah,
I was watching about the Alaskan one because they called it
yeah,
Nontinok and stuff. And I thought,
yeah,
oh my God, they're grown men and they're like terrified of the wind.
yeah,
Um, so, but I think it is plausible
yeah,
that there are animals like a hairy mammalian animal that could
yeah,
exist in the world.
yeah,
Especially in remote regions of the world, say like Tibet or kind of wilder areas of America. I mean,
yeah.
they do claim that we have them here in the UK.
Yeah, I think you've probably noticed them. Maybe in the Highlands of Scotland is about the only place I can think
Yeah,
of where
I
you
mean,
might get something like that. So,
there was, I mean, going back to 2003,
yeah.
not too far away from where I'm sitting now, it was called the Beast of Bolam.
All right.
And it was Bolam Lake, which is a country park well, it's in Northumberland.
Yeah.
And some people saw a very large hairy animal with glowing red eyes.
All right.
And it happened on more than one occasion. And it made the national papers, made the local papers, and it was sufficiently interesting enough for the for Jonathan Downs, who's the head of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, to come up
Yeah.
and investigate it. Nothing was ever found.
Right.
Uh, Especially, I mean, even I went and had a look. Very
Yeah.
nice place. Um, but
No
I
creature.
think no, I can't believe that you would you would have these creatures wandering around here in the
Yeah.
UK. I mean, big cats, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
even recently, wasn't there somewhere in Scotland where these rewilding people have released
Yeah.
lynx? They've had to capture them again.
Yeah.
But we've got black cats. I know there's a police officer in County Durham that specifically goes out and looks for them
Yeah.
because they were released into the wild when they brought the Dangerous Animals Act in back in the
Yeah.
1970s. Uh, but there's
Yeah.
so many different things. I mean, in the States, you've got dogmen, you've got
Yeah.
skunk, you've got Mothman,
Mothman.
you've got
Yeah.
Mothman. I don't know about Mothman.
Nah.
It was a good film with Richard Gere. I mean,
Yeah.
I, the cryptozoology thing. It's, I mean, it's interesting. It's plausible,
Yeah.
and there are things that we will find. There were these fishermen that were claiming that they were catching extinct fish. And
Yeah.
think, no, they died out during the. This will be another after
Yeah.
secret. They died out during the Paleolithic,
Yeah.
whatever. And then they went, look, we've caught this, and it's like, oh, it really is one of those fish.
Yeah.
So maybe one day.
Yeah, there are some things that the consensus seems to be that they do exist, but they've never been able to catch a specimen, like sort of giant squid and things like that.
Yeah,
Even kind of scientists say, yeah, they probably are out there in the deep oceans. We've just never got one
yeah,
because they
they're
don't
like a rogue
come up the
wave.
surface much. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, they've never caught a rogue wave on camera until was it the deadliest catch,
yeah,
and it almost overturned the boat. I mean, I was on a cruise ship, and we
yeah.
got hit by a rogue wave.
All right.
It was 15 foot high,
Yeah.
and it woke everybody. It was 6:30 in the morning. I was out of the bed thinking somebody was trying to break into the room. I was ready to fight them.
I kind of
But
love
yeah,
things like that though, that people do actually, believe exist that even sort of scientists and people are kind of seeing these things exist, but we don't know what it is. Like ball lightning, the consensus is
Yeah.
it exists. Nobody really knows why it happens. That's kind of
Well,
quite a nice
yeah.
thing.
That was one of the things about during the Second World War,
Yeah,
and it didn't just happen in Europe; it happened over in Asia. You had
yeah,
something called a Foo Fighter,
yeah,
uh, which the Allies were being bothered by, the Axis powers were being bothered by,
yeah,
and they didn't know what it was. And they think it was a UFO,
yeah,
uh, but they were also claiming it could have been ball lightning.
yeah,
So, but ball lightning's very rare
yeah,
from bounce. I think it's generated or it's, another word for it's an earth light. So it's
yeah,
like tectonic plate movement creating kind of electrically charged somethings.
yeah,
I don't know the science behind it. I've just got a book by Paul Devereux called Earth Lights. So
yeah, yeah. It's a fascinating thing. I mean, it's like this whole area of sort of the paranormal or the unexplained or whatever seems to kind of vary between things that are hard to believe that we don't know
yeah,
whether they exist or not, and things right through to things that probably do exist, but we still don't know why they exist. So
yeah.
it's a fascinating area.
It is, and these things will one day be put to bed. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know when.
In a way, though, I don't know if you're the same, but I kind of, in a way, I hope they don't find explanations for a lot of these things because
No.
once something's got an explanation, to me, it's instantly a lot more boring.
Yeah.
I'd rather kind of
No.
have things that I don't know about.
Well, it's like, can you remember there was these stones in a desert somewhere in South America that moved?
Yeah, yeah,
What was it? Trail, and they figured out why.
yeah,
And it's because at one particular time of year, there's a very incredibly thin layer of ice forms
yeah,
underneath them, and
yeah.
it's the wind that moves the rocks. And it's like, oh,
It's
well,
like
that's
it's
more than escape.
amazing, but slightly disappointing.
Yeah,
That'd be a
yeah.
good show, but that'd be a good title for a show. Amazing, but slightly disappointing.
Yeah, presented by William Shatner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I want to
Or
see that now.
maybe Patrick Stewart could get that one.
Or Jonathan
Yeah.
Frakes. Yeah.
Or Jonathan Frakes. I mean, yeah, yeah. Brent Spiner. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're heading towards the end of our time here, so I'll
Oh,
wrap this up for the recording. Thank
okay.
you for joining me today, Dickie.
No
Maybe
worries. My
maybe you can
pleasure.
come on again sometime and some other time and discuss more
Yeah.
unexplained things or something else.
Yeah.
Yes, I avoided asking you to talk about Bond because I thought, well, that's the obvious choice, isn't it, to ask you to
Absolutely.
talk about
Uh,
Bond. So maybe next
I'll
time we
talk.
could talk about
Yeah,
Bond.
I'll do Bond. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. My word is my bond.
That was The Unexplained. Is it still unexplained? Well, that's up to you to decide. I'd like to thank Richard Knapper once more for joining me in this endeavour, and you can join us again next time for another cozy chat in the October Club. That was the October Club, presented by Paul Ferry, with special guest star Richard Knapper. The theme music was by Peter Falconer, and the programme was produced and edited by Paul Ferry. You can follow us online by going to octoberclubpodcast.wordpress.com. This was a Mosaic production.